Maximum alert. Golden State Warriors about to shock the NBA with trade for big man. If you're a Warriors fan, you've probably already found yourself thinking, how long will we depend on Curry's magical nights and pray that we don't suffer in the playoffs? I know exactly what this frustration is like to see the team play well, but die taking a layup and an offensive rebound in a big game. In today's video, I will show you, step by step, how a single move by the board can change this scenario. The exchange for a center who not only protects the rim, but completely changes the way the rival defense faces Golden State. If you're tired of seeing Curry's window being wasted and want to understand what the real plan is behind this high alert, stay with me until the end, because today we're going to connect the dots and see the path for the Warriors to rule the NBA again. Before we get into the details of this possible bombastic exchange, I'm going to ask you something quickly. If you are one of those who do not accept seeing the Curry era being thrown away, take the opportunity now to subscribe to the channel, because here I always bring this type of in-depth analysis that you don't see in a 5-minute summary. Leave a like because this shows YouTube that this content makes sense to you and helps me to continue bringing videos every day. Take advantage and activate the bell, because when any serious news breaks about this move by the Warriors, you will be one of the first to know. Now let's get straight to the point. Who this center is, what changes in the rotation, which pieces could leave, and how this impacts Golden State's title window. Stay with me until the end, because every detail of this analysis connects with the next. And at the end, I will tell you clearly whether or not it is worth paying the price of this exchange. Let me take you into the Bay for a minute. Imagine night falling in San Francisco, the bridge lit up, the arena already empty after another regular season game. No new track going up, no big announcement, no historic press conference. But inside, in a room without cameras, someone is messing with a spreadsheet. One cell, just one, turns from red to amber. And suddenly, what until yesterday was a fan's dream becomes a real path. It's no longer a trading machine fantasy. It's a map, a script, a possible route to transform this team into something that, again, scares the entire league. That's what I want to talk to you about today. You are, so to speak, on our daily channel of conversation about Warriors, a place for news, for responsible rumors, and mainly for basketball context. It's not just who came, who left, it's why, how, and what this means in May, not just January. Today, the matter is serious. The salary cap wheels that have turned recently. What changes when you cross the new CBA tracks? The two-step plan that could put an elite center alongside Stephen Curry and Draymond Green, and what this means for the end of the title window of one of the greatest point guards in history. I want you to feel like you're sitting here with me, looking at the whiteboard, seeing the arrows, the numbers, the rotations, and in the end, making the same decision that a real front office needs to make: risk or preserve. Clarity inside the building. Let's start with the most important thing: identity. The Warriors know who they are. That's no small feat in a league where half the teams are still trying to figure out whether to rebuild, retool, or push the problem into next summer. When this team is whole and focused, the game takes on a rhythm of its own. The ball moves with purpose. Cuts without the ball begin to appear almost by reflex. Blocks away from the ball open up shots that other teams simply don't have in their repertoire. Curry doubles the gravity on the court. Draymond sees 2 possessions ahead. The right spacing turns rotation players into functional pieces, not holes to be hidden. But playoffs don't just reward beauty. And that's where the conversation gets uncomfortable. In the months of April and May, aesthetics without rim structure tend to die early. In recent years, we have seen this more than once. Errors that are not erased in the bottle, layups that the opponent completes in sequence, attacks that depend too much on an above-average three-point success. Even in the best versions of the champion Warriors, there was a common denominator, a pivot profile capable of, to a greater or lesser extent, controlling the glass, protecting the rim, or forcing the rival defense to make uncomfortable decisions. This is what is missing in fullness today. The West has changed, and so has mathematics. Look around the conference. You see fives who slow down the game. impose contact, play at their own pace. You see big wings who spend all night going to the free throw line. Do you see offenses that turn every offensive rebound into a string of 5 or if is points? Because they kill the first ball, get the rebound, and even punish in transition. If at any point you caught yourself thinking, there's an anchor missing in the middle, that's not nostalgia for another basketball. It is a correct reading of a league that has evolved. Playoffs today are increasingly an equation. Who controls the rim? Who dictates the quality of the trays that will be taken and granted? Who has the ability, in a long series, to eliminate the opponent's plan B? Golden State has already proven that it can win by betting on lightness, speed, and intelligence. But the older you get, the more expensive it becomes to rely on genius every night. And this is where a concept comes in that you've probably seen a lot, but few people actually stop to understand. The so-called salary cap bands, the aprons. When the rule book becomes the plot, the new CBA was not designed to make life easier for rich and creative teams. It was designed to set limits. The first and second apron are not just rows in a table. These are barriers that change the type of conversations a team can have. Above the second apron, some things cease to exist. You can no longer combine several average salaries to arrive at the value of a large contract. The famous aggregation of contracts is no longer a resource. It becomes a locked door, and there's only one way to open that door. Clear your own payroll until you get back to the right side of the line. If you ignore this, you live in a fantasy world. It gets stuck in a rumor that can never turn into a real proposal. That's where many fans get lost. They just look at names and forget that. Before thinking about who gets in, you need to take care of how you get out of the restrictions. That's why that spreadsheet cell-changing color is so symbolic. It's not just a number that becomes less red. It's a confirmation. There is a roadmap, if we have the courage to follow it. The two-step plan. Let's organize this itinerary together. Step 1. Regain freedom of maneuver. Before dreaming about big changes, you need to take a step back from the drawing board. Golden State needs to reallocate at least one significant veteran salary to a partner who have space or structure to absorb it. See real value in the player, not just the contract number. This is not about dumping someone. It's about finding a fit in which all parties gain something. The other team gains immediate experience, stability, or talent. The Warriors gain payroll relief. And from this, they regain the right to combine contracts into a larger exchange. This first movement is the silent part of the shot. It doesn't always make headlines. It is often interpreted as just saving the owner money. However, in practice, it is the type of adjustment that releases the second step, which really changes the conversation. Step 2. Consolidate talent at the top. Once freed to add contracts, the Warriors can put together a truly competitive package for an elite center. Something along the lines of a central salary that matches the star, a young man with a clear ceiling, already with real production on the court, draft picks that have market value without being symbolic, and rotation players that the team trusts to develop and fit into any system. It's not a trick. It's not a shortcut. It's competence. It's accepting that, to have a top piece that changes your reality, you need to concentrate value in a few hands and trust that the rest of the cast will be supported by internal development. The fit on the court, Curry, Draymond, and an elite center. Now let's get out of the spreadsheet and onto the court, because that's where everything comes to life. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine Stephen Curry surrounded by what he always had. Space, multiple locking options, teammates who think the game quickly. Now add to this a pivot that establishes blockages as if they were walls, changes the angle in the middle of the play, forcing the defender to make a quick decision, and then explodes towards the rim, threatening an aerial bridge or a strong finish in the painted area. Weak side help needs to sink. If it doesn't sink, it's a tray or buried. If it sinks too far, the ball goes back into the corner and the dead zone is resurrected. Curry, Wiggins, Moody, whoever is there, opens the court again, and the defense returns to the cycle of impossible decisions. Draymond, alongside such an anchor, stops being a full-time firefighter. He can once again assume the role of free security, who anticipates plays, risks interceptions, guides rotations. Instead of being the last resort, it becomes the first command again. In reserves, a pivot of this profile allows for another type of survival. The minutes without Curry, which have so often become become a nightmare, can be protected with solid defense, controlled rebound, offense streamlined around pick and roll, low post, and well-executed cuts. Playoffs are a constant test of pitch selection discipline. Who can keep is your diet stable when your legs feel heavy and your opponent memorizes his moves? A great big box player helps answer that. It reduces the need for heroism each night, allows for simpler, more repeatable attacks, less hostage to magical three-point nights. Why is there so much talk about Dallas and a big two-way? In any honest conversation today about centers who truly change the math of a series, one name always comes up: an Anthony Davis caliber two-way interior. In the scenario we're looking at here, he's in Dallas after a mid-season turnaround. This completely changes the board. When a star of that size changes context, every serious team in the league stops what they're doing and revisits their plans. Dallas faces a crossroads. Insist on a motor-centric core of point guards, surrounding its star with bigger wings, versatile defenders, and a great vertical finisher? Or do you decide to open up, regain payroll flexibility, and stack assets to have multiple paths for the next 5 years? If at some point that second path becomes a reality, Golden State needs to be ready to enter the conversation, not with fantasy, but with structure. This is where the two-step plan meets first and last name, the real cost of a star of this magnitude. Let's talk about pain, because there is no exchange of this size without it. A package for a center at Davis's level is not a cosmetic arrangement. It hits the heart of the cast. You are talking in practice about something like a strong veteran with status and history leaving, a young man who has already started to consolidate himself, seen as a piece of the future, multiple first-round picks, perhaps with different protections, perhaps with swaps in alternate years. It's the type of proposal that no fan easily swallows the day they read the breaking. The instinctive reaction is to think, we delivered too much. Therefore, the central question is not, does it hurt or doesn't it hurt? The question is, does the return on the court make up for this pain? If the answer is no, the matter dies here. If the answer is yes, you enter into a more adult discussion. How many years of Curry's title window are we buying back with this move? A pivot of this magnitude reorganizes its defense, changes the way the opponent attacks the rim, makes your minutes without Steph less vulnerable, and expands the repertoire of your half-court attack. You are not just solving a hole in the rotation, he's redefining the team's ceiling, what Dallas really wants. But there is another side of the table. Dallas is not there to help the Warriors write another beautiful chapter. He is defending his own interests, thinking about his own fans, his own star, his own narrative. If they decide to listen to proposals, their board will look at 3 elements at the same time: future flexibility, contracts that can be moved again, that do not tie the payroll for years around average players; takeoff runway, a young man with real potential, capable of being sold as the face of the future; asset control, picks well distributed over time with intelligent protections, which allow for other negotiations in the future. It's not enough to send known names. It is necessary to send structures that make sense to them. Contracts with team options, years of duration compatible with the franchise plan, players who, within their system, can produce from day one. Furthermore, there is the human factor. You don't exchange a locker room pillar for any package. You assess whether the people who arrive have a history of professionalism, accept roles clearly. They can live with the pressure of carrying new expectations. This is why any serious Warriors proposal needs to be coherent in 2 dimensions: financial and locker room. If you build a package that makes headlines but don't project competitive quintets for Dallas next season, the conversation doesn't go beyond the first call: health, availability, and the role of the environment. We come to the most sensitive subject: health. Everyone knows that Davis, at his best, is an MVP-level player, protects the rim at a high level, can survive long exchanges on the perimeter, finishes like few others in the bottle. But it is also true that the absence history exists, and to ignore it would be naive. The question, then, is no longer, will he miss games? To become, what kind of environment can get the most out of a player like that in the moments that matter most? The Warriors have some structural advantages: a culture that values physical maintenance, a history of careful cargo control, a coaching staff that understands the value of arriving in April in one piece, even if it costs regular season prizes. It is possible to imagine a minute plan in which Davis plays between 30 and 33 minutes on typical nights, rest in specific back-T games, OBAC, have a training calendar guided by objective data, not impulse. You don't buy a warranty, you buy a better distribution of results. The question becomes pragmatic again. If the price of having Davis is managing occasional absences during the season, in exchange for a very high level of impact in May, is this acceptable? For a team that still has Curry at a high level, the answer tends to be yes. How this translates into concrete plays. Let's put all of this in situations that you can already visualize. Think of a simple possession. Curry with the ball at the head of the carboy. Davis coming in for the block. Draymond parked in the dead zone, ready to throw the next pass. If the defense tries to go over the block, Davis rolls hard to the rim. If the center's defender moves back too far to protect the layup, Curry has space for a mid or long-range shot. If the assists collapse, the pass to the corner is open. In another situation, without Curry on the court, center pick and roll with Davis, a secondary point guard leading, two shooters positioned in the corners. The goal is not a pretty play. It's a replicable move, one that can be sustained even without the genius that illuminates everything. That's what changes long series, the ability to score in a predictable way, even if the opponent knows what's coming. On defense, the impact is even easier to see. With a strong anchor in the paint, Draymond can anticipate passing lines, risking steals on the first line, command aggressive exchanges, knowing that there is someone to contest at the rim if the rotation is delayed by half a second. The practical result of this is fewer trays given away, more clean defensive rebounds, more counterattacks, which is where the Warriors' intelligence and spacing hurt. What's at stake for Curry's window? All of this, deep down, comes back to a single axis: time. Stephen Curry is no longer the young man he had a full decade ahead of him. He still plays at an extraordinary level, but every year now matters twice as much. Do you want to waste a Curry season in the name of preserving all the youth and all the picks? Or do you want to accept that, at some point, a team that really wants to compete for a title needs to concentrate talent, even if that means giving up part of its future? There is no universal answer. There is the specific reality of this franchise, this cast, this star. In the case of the Warriors, there are some natural protections: the historic ability to develop players at the end of the squad, the offensive and defensive system that enhances talents that, in other teams, would be common, the culture of shared responsibility. All of this makes a consolidation at the top movement less risky than it would be in a franchise with no identity, no culture, and no history of development. The decision you would make. So we come to the final point of our conversation. Suppose the two-step plan is competently executed, a veteran salary be reallocated, Golden State falls below critical CBA lines, Dallas, at some point, signals a willingness to listen to offers for a two-way center at Davis's level. In your view, what should happen? Would you authorize the board to sacrificing a young man you grew to admire, giving up picks that could become important at the end of the Curry era, completely reconfigure the rotation, betting that a big one at the top puts the team back on a direct path to June? Or would you prefer maintain current depth, betting that small specific adjustments, more internal development, will be enough, except that maybe this means a slightly lower competitive ceiling, but a longer road? There is no simple answer. Yes, there is a map, a path that combines correct reading of the rules, courage to face the cost, and a very clear vision of the type of basketball the Warriors want to play in the final stretch of Stephen Curry's career. For my part, looking at the context of the league, the playoff demands, what we've seen succeed and fail in recent years, I tend to be aggressive. Accept pain today to buy real relevance tomorrow. Exchange comfort for the concrete chance of returning to May and June with protagonism. Now I want to hear you. If this were your channel, If you were sitting in the general manager's chair, what would be your red line? Which young person would you not agree to include under any circumstances? How many first-round picks would be tolerable? Would you accept weakening the depth of the rotation if you believed that the main quintet would be strong enough to change the history of a series? Think about it calmly, because believe me, this conversation, with bigger numbers, more details, more pressure, is exactly the conversation that is happening inside the rooms where franchise fates are decided. And while that happens, we remain here, a step back, but looking at the same map. So let's put it all in a simple, direct, and impossible-to-ignore sentence. Either the Warriors treat the final stretch of the Stephen Curry era as absolute urgency, or they will watch from the sidelines as other teams write the stories that could have been theirs. It's not about whim. It's not about making noise in the media. It's about deciding with courage whether you want to see Curry finish his career still changing series math in June, or just collecting tributes in April. This 2 steps is not a trick. It is the difference between facing the future with fear of making mistakes or with a willingness to pay the price to fight all over again. If this type of analysis makes sense to you, if you feel like you also see the game beyond the score and the headline, then don't stop here. I separated an entire playlist just with this type of content, going deep into tactical adjustments, exchange scenarios, the real impact of each piece and everything that could affect the future of the franchise. Once you're done, go down to the pinned comment and click on the Warriors Analyses playlist. Press play, marathon the videos, come back here to comment on your ideas, and most importantly, create your own map for the next big chapter of Dub Nation.